through the roof, and it was just so crowded. And that's just what, I don't know, there's just something about it that just makes me so happy, because y'all didn't come here for anybody. You have no idea who's sharing. You have no idea who's leading worship, but you don't care because you came for Jesus. You didn't come for anybody else, but you came for him because you wanted to get something. You wanted something healed in your heart, or you wanted to know that you're loved from heaven, or that you're seen and that you're saved. And so this is that place for you. I would love to know how many people are here for the first time. This is my favorite part. So I want to ask y'all, if you're here or you are not getting our Friday videos, I want to ask you to pull out your phone, please. I know, just for a second. And I want you to go to BeStillMinistries.net, especially if you're new. We really, really want y'all to get this Friday encouragement. So we send out a video. It's about 6 minutes to 12. No, I'm just kidding. 6 to 9 minutes long every Friday, and they're just kind of fun, and it's just a little pick-me-up before the weekend. We just kind of share what God's been doing in our lives, and we're going to have our friends come on there. So anyway, it's going to kind of be a little fun platform for y'all to hear from some more people that are on the prayer team, and just a word of encouragement that we feel like the Lord is either teaching us something or something he's kind of downloaded to us for the day. So BeStillMinistries.net, and then subscribe when you get on there, because we want you to give us your email so we can send you this video. And I promise we don't spam you. We only send out one a week, and we just kind of tell you what God's doing. Come up here. Tonight, Amber and Evie are here, and every time Amber can come, I just feel like heaven just, I don't know, just sings with us. Something about a violin. I don't even know what's happening to me. I feel like I get to go to heaven with my husband, so I'm just so happy. And anyway, so I just wanted Amber to come, but tonight she's actually going to share a story of something that happened to her while she was at Be Still, actually, this past spring, and so she's going to share that in a minute. But before we do that, I have a couple of things I'd love to give away. So my sweet friends Eric and Kristen Hill wrote this amazing, amazing book about Peter and Jesus, and it's beautiful, and it's got all these amazing pictures of Israel, and it's about the first breakfast that Jesus serves his disciples. It's loaded with amazing, amazing truth and treasures. And so if you love Peter, the person who Jesus said, I'm going to build my church upon a rock, and Peter's name means rock. So if you love Peter, if you love studying about Peter, raise your hand and read this book. Anybody? Yes, Leslie, just one. She really just raised her hand and looked down. I was like, oh, you're a winner. So, and then we bought some tickets that we ended up having one or a few extras, and this book was from that ticket, from this thing that we went to over to church over in Kennesaw, and this is the book Modern Prophets. And I would love, if y'all love studying like church history and prophecy and how that's kind of going on in the church, I would love to give you this book. And it's also got an e-course. It's like a little scratch-off code, and you can do an e-course about how to hear God. It's amazing. So raise your hand if you want that, or if you're like, I want to hear God better, raise your hand. This is the book for you. Right there, Elizabeth! Yes! Okay, come up here and get that. I'm just going to lay it right here. But Amber, I'm going to pray, and then I want Amber to share before they sing. Alright, we're going to be still tonight, girls. This is it. School started. I just feel this flurry of activity. I mean, oh gosh. So we're just going to sit here for just a minute. Hand on your stomach. Just take a big deep breath. Just visualize like an in your head. And you're just going to drop down, and you just see it going down, down, down through your neck, down through your chest. Papa, tell us who we are. Tell us how loved we are. Tell us your heart for your girls. Right now, God, I just see us all knowing. All knowing that you're here. Knowing that we're seen. Knowing that all of heaven is standing over the balcony and just like, yes, those are my girls. We're so happy that they're going to cry out just like we get to cry out from heaven. And Lord, I just pray right now that the veil between heaven and earth would be so thin that we can taste it, that we would actually experience honey on our lips because of how good you are. That we would really taste it tonight. That we would really see you for who you are. You're just good. You're just kind. And you want more for us than we could ever imagine. So Lord, just let the more just flood our hearts tonight, God. Flood our spirits, flood our entire bodies. For anyone who needs healing tonight, God, may it start right now. And they feel their body burn as your word is released, as the testimony of your blood and the healing that we all get because of your death. May it start right now. We love you, Jesus. And you love us so much. It is an honor to sit at your feet. How is this our life? I say that all the time. How is this our life? How are you that good? God, for any girl who doesn't believe that today, I pray that you change that in a minute for her right now. And that she walks out of here going, wow, I think he is good. I think he is good. We love you. You're amazing. Amber, come share us. Hey.
Sorry. You guys are not very just a violin, so this is different. I'm not so much a words person, so y'all bear with me. So this was a few months ago. It must have been spring, early spring maybe. I don't consider myself too supernatural-ish, you know. Oh look, see, I'm doing this. I'm a newbie, okay. But ever since I was a kid, God sort of speaks to me through dreams sometimes, probably because I'm quiet and not practicing and being busy. And I have had quite a few of those sort of dreams where I'm acutely aware that this is not a normal dream. I'm somewhere different, and God's showing me something. And I had a very vivid dream that I was aware that I was in some spiritual realm, not an earthly place. And I saw sort of like a park bench, a backless park bench, and I saw a young lady sitting there from the back of her. And I see that she has the most perfect beach ponytail. You guys know the one? And you're like, how? And that's the first thing I thought was, oh my God, that girl's hair. Like, I want her ponytail. I want her hair. So I approach her from the back, and I know that I am not in a physical body. I'm aware that I'm in some sort of spiritual form because she doesn't know that I'm there. So I approach her and I get closer and closer, and I keep thinking, she's gonna notice me or something, you know, she's gonna catch on because I'm getting closer and closer, and I come around her right side. Does that mean? I come around her right side, and I'm getting closer and closer to her face, and as I get closer, I can see that there is this gold dust coming off her whole body and her hair. Her hair is blondish, golden, and I get closer and closer because I cannot understand what am I seeing. So I come about face, and I put my face in her face, and I'm coming closer and closer. And I can see around her hairline, I'm so close, I can see all these little baby hairs. And all of the hairs here, there's this thick gold dust around her face, like this, like a halo. And I lean in closer, I'm down like this, and now I'm so close, I'm like, surely she can feel me breathing on her. And she has freckles all over her nose here, and I look into her eyes, and I can see straight through them, and there's this just gold dust coming off her face. And I caught my breath in my stomach. I'm so close, I went, and I turned, and I knew that if it was God or voice, whatever you want to call it, I turned and I said, do you see her? I said, she's beautiful. And I almost am crying. As I say out loud, it catches in my throat. I said, oh, she's beautiful. And voice says, that's you. And I said, that's not me, that's Hannah. And I have a friend named Hannah. We started college at the same time. We had the same degree, we were on the same classes, same height, same body style, we both played violin, had the same exact hair color, same eyes, everything. So people always confuse us. Our whole, you know, that was 15 years ago, you know, but people still confuse us. I said, no, that's Hannah. And voice said very clearly, this is how you look. Just plainly, that is how you look. And I woke up, and I was in a very low place, just not for any reason, nothing triggered it, but just you get in those low places where you don't feel good about yourself, and you feel like a failure, and you feel unloved. And frankly, I still live in that place a lot where I feel unloved. And I don't know, I woke up and it stayed with me all day. And I woke up and voice said to me and my conscious self, that is what you look like from above. And it's really hard to believe that, and honestly, my conscious mind doesn't believe. You know, my brain doesn't believe all the time, but Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, right? So, I don't know, that's it.
Thank you, Jesus. Just thank you. Our rescuer, our redeemer, our lover, our king, our savior, our friend. All we need, Jesus, is found in you. Thank you for that truth. It's not a feeling. We stand on that firm foundation tonight, God. All that you are is all that we need, all that we want. We're longing for it, God. The deepest part of us cries out for more of you tonight, every day of our life. It's in your precious name we pray and we sing. Amen. Let's go back to the Rachel's breathing. When I walked in this evening, I instantly felt wine drunk. And I promise I not only have water and coffee all day, but I just felt this fuzzy electrosis energy that is, and I'm not into that. That's nothing that I would ever say. Every person that I touched and every person that I met tonight, I think I shocked 2 of you, and you didn't even know it, but I felt it. I mean, this is spirit-filled, and this home right now is spirit-filled, and I just know it, and I see it. The enemy was after me this week, the very thing that Karen and Rachel asked me to speak about.
I have struggled with more this week than ever. And if I know anything, that means that I have to be here. Even if a car runs over my legs, I have to crawl here. So I'm believing that my story is going to touch just one person. Just to give you a background of who I am. I married my high school sweetheart. He still is darling. And we got pregnant because no one told us not to. And that's just what you do. We were very, very, very happy, seemingly. And I had set up the perfect picture of a life. We were opening up our first restaurant in our 20s. We were on an episode of House Hunters, and if you look that up, we cannot be friends. I am begging you, please no. But we were small town celebrities and really had it. And people would approach us and say, "You guys are doing so much. You guys are having so much fun. You're having your first baby, you're renovating a house, you're on the show, you're in a restaurant. I mean, you guys are just, you got it. You just got it. You got the sparkle." And I felt happy because we seemed happy, but that happiness was not a true inner peace that really touched my core. I struggled with severe crippling anxiety, and really had to be on medicine just to make it, just to function. But again, I was happy sometimes because we looked good sometimes. And we had our baby, we opened our restaurant, and things were good. Things were good. I had the pieces in place, and I was in control. Well, I was breastfeeding my daughter one day. I mean, as you do 100 times in one day. And I received a message from someone that I did not know, detailing my husband's affair, and that the other woman was pregnant. My world fell apart. The pieces that I had placed were dust. The control that I had was no more. I was naked, just naked, stripped, vulnerable. And instead of entering into a time of peace, I entered into the war zone of moving, separating, moving money, feeling afraid. What do I do? How do I protect myself? How do I control this? How do I keep myself safe? And opinions were coming in like bullets. And these were opinions from people that were fellow believers, friends and family. And they were speaking fear into the most darkest places of my hearts where I just was so afraid, where I let the enemy have authority. And it wasn't until I stopped and went into some kind of solitude and said, "Okay, God, I don't know what to do. And people that I respect are telling me to be afraid. What do you want me to do, God?" And it wasn't until I learned to be attuned to the Holy Spirit. I had never practiced that before, but I shut everything down and learned to listen to what God was telling me to do, which is not always logical. Most of the time it's not. And it doesn't make sense. It did not make sense. And so many people, again, were speaking into my fear, speaking into my fear. And I had to say, "I love you, but you're not God." And I had to listen to him. And when I listened to him, and when I shut it down, when I shut the opinions down and became attuned and hyper aware to what he was telling me, redemption spread like wildfire. And I'm so happy to say that now I am on the other side of reconciliation with my husband. And we are a family. And yes, there is pain. And we are in recovery. And his humility and his repentance has been such a sweet gift to me to heal. But the journey's not over. We are still dealing with the consequences of that season. Last week was a really hard week for me. Again, dealing with reminders and consequences and really some things that cannot be avoided. And whenever I feel that way and this need to just go worship God, I go on a walk. And sometimes I'll walk 2 miles, sometimes I'll walk 3. But I'd already walked 4. And I went a route that I had never been on before. And I was completely lost. And I live in Grant Park, and you do not want to get lost in Grant Park. And I came up to this hill that was so big. And my baby is chunky. And pushing her is so hard. And I was exhausted. And I just thought, oh God, I've already walked 4 miles. I don't want to climb this hill. But I knew it was the way home. So I put 1 foot in front of the other. And I climbed that hill. And when I came home, any time that I just want to read the word and praise God, I go to Psalms. And of course I wrote this in pink highlighter. And I opened up the Psalms and I just got to start chapter 1. So I was reading. And I came to Psalm 2, 6 through 9. And it says, "As for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, 'You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance.'" I mean, this is just such a big deal. Because I have been someone who I've spent my life adding to the cross, adding performance, adding works. And all that that's done is it's kept me further and further away from my Father's house. And I knew I had to lay those things down. And if I really wanted to receive my inheritance of his kingdom, I had to lay those things down. My pastor a couple Sundays said, he gave me just this great visual. He said, if you want to see the sun rise, you run into the darkness. And that's what I had to do. I had to run into the darkness and see my sin, but not in a way of judgment or condemnation, but in a way of desperation for freedom. Look at it this way. You take a journal and you write down everything that you've ever done. And you even have the foresight to see everything that you will do that is bad, that is dark, that is ugly. And then here's Jesus, perfectly righteous. He takes that journal, that becomes his journal, and in exchange, he puts the cloak of righteousness on you. That is what he's doing, but to get there, you have to see. You have to see the darkness to find that and to receive that and accept that. And it was so great for me because halfway through our marriage recovery, I was still holding on to my victimhood of this was done to me, me. And could not forgive, did not want to forgive. I was afraid if I forgive, it makes what happened okay. Or I I lose control and I don't get to have leverage anymore. And I was clinging to that bitterness, and it was doing nothing but making me just absolutely miserable. And how I truly forgave, because I'm sure, I mean, we all want to know, how do we forgive? I want to forgive, but how do we forgive? Well, first, you have to know and accept that you forgive because you were forgiven. You have to. You have to fully embrace that, taste that, see that. And second, just from an emotional health standpoint, why would you want to tie your stuff up with their stuff? Yes, we have heaven, but we have the kingdom of earth now. We were meant to have joy now. And bitterness, on the way up, my mom told me, bitterness opens the door to a stronghold. I mean, you know who has a stronghold? Serial killers. Seriously. Be that afraid of bitterness. Do it for you. Do it so that you can enjoy this life in this world. And thirdly, reconciliation. I mean, we have a God that is on a mission to redeem and restore everything. And sometimes we have to get out of the way. And that's how I was able to forgive. And forgiveness is such a process. I'm having to journal and write these things down and pray about these things all the time. I mean, I told you earlier, bitterness was happening this week. Satan did not want me here. I was cleaning out a junk drawer and found this purple note card that Elaine gave me my first day at Father's house. And I did not know Elaine, and Elaine did not know me. But she spent time praying for me and wrote this for me. I read it one time, and I thought, that's really sweet. But I mean, it's very sweet. Thank you for praying for me. But I just kind of gave her the smile. Well, I found this card and read it. And I won't go into the top. I mean, this is very significant up here. But something that is just unbelievable is, I mean, I have been obsessed with God's holy hill, his hill, and what does that mean? What does that mean for me? And I realized that it is my sanctification. It is God aligning my heart with his. And that's what it's really about. He wants your heart. And my sanctification, my hill, is not going to be Kelly's hill. It's not going to be Karen's hill. Because you are such a precious, precious child to him. Just like if you have 4 children, you know them so well, you know their hearts, and you know that they're different. And you know that this one needs this structure. You know that this one needs this type of learning. So he knows you. He is a good father. And he knows what your sanctification is. And the reins that I had in my life were so tight, and the fear that I had was so big, what happened had to happen. I believe that, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. A year later, I can say that. And if you would have said that to me a year ago, I would have slapped you. I would not have believed that. But I believe that now. What I know, and the peace, and the joy, and the comfort that I have now, because of what happened, is precious and priceless. So I went to the first verse that Elaine wrote on this card. And it's Daniel 9:20 through 23. And again, Elaine wrote this for me, 2/12/2019. And I read this last week. Daniel 9:20 through 23. While I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people, making my request to the Lord God for his holy hill. And I knew, God, What a ruthless pursuit. Mm-hmm. You were after me. You've been after me. I just had to get out of the way. Mm-hmm. And when you surrender and you give him your heart, there's fruit. Mm-hmm. Your marriage, your children, your job, there's fruit. Mm-hmm. I can't sit here and say that, yes, your husband is going to be repentant. I don't know. That is a gift from the Holy Spirit. Repentance is so sweet. We should all practice it. It doesn't matter who you are. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have redemption. That's for you to have right now. And the fruit that you're going to reap from just aligning your heart with God's and climbing that holy hill, which can be so hard. And some of you, you have been sick for 3 years. And you don't want to climb that hill. You've walked 3 miles already. But just take that step, one step at a time, up the hill. And just know he is with you. He's already walked it. It's been laid out. We all wrestle with decision making. Is this the right decision? Do I have peace with this decision? Just stop and know that he is so sovereign. And everything is so perfectly orchestrated. Just take the step. Just put that foot in front of the other. And just climb and watch what happens. Redemption will spread like wildfire. You know, we talk about generational sin all the time, and I find that so depressing, and I'm really sick of it. I want to talk about my heritage. I want to talk about the foundation that has been laid before me by my aunt and my mom. I want to lay that out for my daughter. I want to lay that out for my friends. I want them to have and inherit that. And y'all, if we think that, I was a communications major. I only really started reading the Bible this year. So it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Your story is such a sweet gift. And I have been reluctant to share because I've been afraid if I share, it makes the pain real. But let me just tell you, oh my goodness, it makes the pain a distant, distant memory. And there's freedom. You just, every time you share your story, even if it's the woman behind you at Publix, you are setting someone free. And that's what is so incredible about this ministry, is there's freedom in stillness. Be still and know that I am God. What you're agreeing to when you say that, when you proclaim that, is, God, you are perfectly sovereign, and you have orchestrated everything. You came and you died on this earth so that I could inherit the kingdom now, right now. We need to quit lashing our backs and saying, heaven's going to be great. Yes, heaven's going to be amazing. It's going to be phenomenal. It's just, I can't wait to look like that girl with the highlight. But we were meant to have joy now. Why did he come to die on this earth? This earth, it was all set up for him. Jesus is not plan B. Since the beginning of just existence, it was Jesus. And the world is not that old. Think about the scale of eternity. You were chosen and elected to be on this earth and to walk the same world that Jesus was on. That is just, if that doesn't make you feel chosen, it's like, who cares about your haircut? Honestly. So I just want to finish by saying, I don't have the answers to marriage. I don't have the answers to motherhood. All that I can tell you is it's been laid out before you. Learn to hear from God. That is just So, I mean, that, I don't even have the words. It's just so important. Learn to hear from him. Be attuned to the Holy Spirit. And he will guide your every step. And it's not going to be logical. And you are going to have friends that say, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't feel good about it. You're going to get hurt. Well, you just say, I love you, but get behind me, Satan. Because God is not logical. He doesn't make sense. Jesus doesn't make sense. And any of you that are on the other side of betrayal, whether it's from a husband or a friend or a parent, believe me when I say that, I mean, it is, if that doesn't make you question your worth, but you have to accept and know how absolutely adored you are, and what a great setup that story or that dream was. That is how he sees you. Oh, he wants your heart. So just get out of the way and give him your heart. And just know and be still. So I just want to thank you for letting me share. I mean, I just feel and know that some of you know this. They know the betrayal. And it has rocked your view of our Father. But don't let it. You can't. It's going to rob you of every ounce of joy that you were created to have now. So just quiet your mind and quiet those opinions around you and just be still. I mean, I just love this ministry. I love the name, but thank you so much. I mean, if anyone wants to talk after and just needs just a hug, I'm so here. I so get it, and I'm still going through it. It's just a process, such a process. But you're so loved, and thank you, Karen and Rachel.
So I'm going to read from Psalms 34 in the Passion. Listen to my testimony. I cried to God in my distress, and he answered me. He freed me from all my fears. Gaze upon him, join your life with his, and joy will come. Your faces will glisten with glory. Your faces will glisten with glory. That's awesome. Hold on for this. Where am I here? You'll never wear the shamed face again. When I had nothing, desperate and defeated, I cried out to the Lord, and he heard me, bringing his miracle deliverance when I needed it most. The angel of the Lord stooped down to listen as I prayed, encircling me, empowering me, and showing me how to escape. He will do this for everyone who fears God. I'm going to do my notes here because I need to. There's a lot to say. All right. So I want to share a little bit about my heritage because this kind of goes along with my testimony. I am Hungarian, and does everybody know Hungary? This is a country that is in Eastern Europe, and it is right next to Austria and attached to 7 other countries actually, but it was behind the Iron Curtain for many years, and it has been set free, thank God. But my parents originally came from there. In 1944, the Soviets oppressed Hungary, and my family was there. My family owned a lot of marble mines. They were pretty wealthy, and when the Soviets came in and occupied the territory, that's what they do. They take the lands, they take the identity of the people, they take, they basically take everything that the people have owned. And so that is what happened to my family. And my parents, they were a bit of a freedom fighters, and they wanted to escape. And so basically, in 1956, the youth revolted, which usually happens. It's their youth that revolts for freedom. And so basically, they revolted in Budapest, but they were actually crushed. I don't think you can read my notes, I kind of know this by heart. Anyway, they were crushed, but because of that revolt, thousands of people were able to actually escape. And so my parents were one of them, and they did it by foot, and they did it through a forest, and they were heading towards Vienna. And they were caught with a bunch of other people. And I'm sharing this just because of the courage that, you know, I feel like my parents had, and to bring me here, because I wasn't even born yet, but just to even get me here is amazing. But they were caught, and they were actually lined up with a group of people to be captured and taken back or shot. And my father and my mother were on the very end of the line, and basically she heard the Lord's voice in Hungarian, in her native language, to take Antal, which is my father's name, and go around the corner and disappear, and that's exactly what they did. And so they actually escaped. They by foot, they went across the border into Vienna. They were planning on going to Belgium, and they actually, my Hungarian friend right there, she's smiling. But basically, you know, they came to the United States with in a Polish boat, and into Philadelphia in 1956. Thank God. Thank God. So, you know, they were very industrious. My father became a pilot while he was here in the United States, and I was born in 1964. And by then, in 1964, I guess the people that came out of those countries, once you're an American citizen, can go back for short periods of time. So we started going back every year for about a month or so. So I had a lot of exposure, and I just always, you know, visited my grandmother for months at a time. But what was going on behind the scenes is my parents had a very traumatic marriage, and PTSD, you know, wasn't really known back then as much as it is now, and that it really affected their marriage and who they were, and they didn't make it. So when I was 8 years old, my dad, I kind of remember, you know, the moment. I just remember walking into the bedroom actually, and he was laying on the bed, and he was crying, and I remember that, and he left. And after he left, my mom was totally traumatized, and I stayed with my mom for 4 years, and during that time, there was some miraculous and some very hard things that happened. And so between 8 and 12, my life was not easy. My mom tried to commit suicide with me in the bathtub. She was traumatized, you know, and then we had a small car accident on her back. Had a lot of injury happen to her back, and she was in traction, and I was still like 10, so, you know, it was kind of like, and I was already, you know, kind of different because I was European, so they were, you know, I was being brought up as a European, and school, an American school, that's weird, so, you know, I got kind of really made fun of, and it was, you know, it was just what the regular, you know, thing that happens to a young person. It's a little different. So, so basically what happened with my mom was while she was in traction, she started having experiences with the Lord. She started actually seeking the Lord, and she met a group of women that actually she became friends with. And I want to ask you, do you know who Catherine Coleman is? Does anybody know? Okay. So, and back then, or Smith Wigglesworth, in those days, I don't know if you guys know that name, but Catherine Coleman was a healer. She was a woman who was filled with the Spirit of God. She was she used words of knowledge, and she used words of knowledge for physical healing. There were people that came in huge arenas all over the country, and she would literally, she would call out the illnesses, the Holy Spirit would work, and they would be healed. I mean, it was amazing. So her name is Catherine Coleman, if everybody wants to look at it. So they took her in a wheelchair to see Catherine Coleman, and she was in the back, And she called her out, and she was completely healed from head to toe. She got saved, Holy Spirit filled, and on fire. Okay, so that was really awesome. And not so awesome part was it turned me completely off. So, so if there's mothers here that are praying for their kids, I'm going to give you hope today. You know, so she totally turned on fire, and so her zeal, you know, just it got her deeper and got me further, and you know, and so I just was like, I'm out of here. So literally at 12, I wanted to live with my dad, and so you know, we went to court. And I actually stood before a judge and everything. It was just a very hard time, and a hard time for my mom, hard time for our family. But by that time, he already remarried to a Swedish woman who was a definite sergeant, a drill sergeant type of personality. But so I moved with my dad, and after I moved with my dad, my mom started smuggling Bibles behind the Iron Curtain. She really just was a, you know, I didn't know it at that time. You know, I did not know it. So through the years following, she started really working a lot with Brother Andrew and a lot of the ministries that work with people that are, you know, that are behind the Iron Curtain that needed the Lord. And but meanwhile, I just stayed with my father, and between 12 and 18, and that was the length of time I stayed with him. And you know, PTSD again was not as known. And so he was a very accomplished person. He was very, he lived a life of excellence. He really did. Everything that he did, he could do very, very well. But he put standards up for me that I just could never reach. And as a young girl, you know, that just went through the trauma with her mother. And, you know, I just never could reach those standards. And that just kind of made it just very, very difficult for me. And I just rebelled even more. So I, you know, started smoking when I was 12. I was in clubs when I was 15 and 16, believe it or not, with fake IDs. I was partying at the shore, and I was living in New Jersey. So it was kind of like a harder life. A little harder life. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. And my voice. Anyway, we need to get my voice strength back here. So 18 years old, I decided to leave because I just couldn't handle the sergeant and, you know, not being able to ever like live up to his expectations. I never got to go to college. He just didn't think I was good enough for that, really. I went to hairdressing school. I put myself through some other things, and, you know, the thing I did have was a very good work ethic. So I just, you know, got along. But what was happening to me between like 18 and 30 was I was still running from the Lord, and I was just not interested in walking with him at all. But he definitely was, I could, you know, just looking back, you can kind of tell the things that he's kind of drew me. He's definitely drawn me. And so my life between those years were clubs, working hard, you know, just partying and just emptier and emptier. And you know, I was trying to find the love of my life, and I never found the love of my life because, you know, there was no man that could actually fill that. And I was actually being attracted to men that were like my father. So my father was emotionally unavailable, and that's always what I was going for. So all the nice men that came in, I just kind of turned away. It was emotionally unavailable ones that I was actually just always trying to get to. And it just never, you know, just never filled it, because it doesn't fill that way. So, so in my 20s, during my 20s, I'm going to tell you this, my mother had a sledding accident. She actually went sledding with kids. I don't know, but she fell off the back of it, and she dropped on her tailbone. And when she did that, oxygen started going up her tailbone, into her spine, into her brain, into her nervous system. So her nervous system started to die. And it was through the years that she just slowly started to, you know, pass and just started to get weaker and weaker. but she spent a lot of time in Hungary with my family. So in the end in my 20s, I actually moved her back. And is everybody all right with my voice?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. A little stronger. Okay, and
It kind of adds to the...
It's very sexy. There's no bad here.
So basically, I took her back to Hungary in the end of my 20s. And you know, during those years, I was such a nervous, I was so rebellious. I just didn't even treat her right. So like our relationship was not good. And you know, I had a lot of regrets with that because I was 29 by then, you know, and she loved the Lord and she was praying for me through years and years and years. And I just didn't receive it, you know, until I was 29 years old and my dad died in 1992 of cancer. And my mother was already sick. And so what happened was I didn't even feel anything when he died. I remember literally when he died, I felt something lift off of my shoulders. And that was just the weirdest experience. But so it took me years to grieve that. You know, I didn't know that I blocked it, but through the years. And after he died, a year and a half, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm out of New Jersey, you know, out of here. So I packed up my cat, my little sports car, and I drove down to Atlanta, and basically started a life here by myself. And that was like the best time too. It was when I didn't know anybody. I left the old behind. It was like God drew me out of the old party scene, brought me here to Atlanta to start new, and I knew I wanted a new life. I was so empty. I was such a hurt person by then, and I was 29 years old, 30 years old. So 3 or 4 months in, I'm working in the trade show industry, starting like very little money, and have a lot of debt just from just from surviving. And basically, I met these people. Now this is going to flip you out. Do you know who Amway is? Do you know who Amway is? Okay, so 3 or 4 months in, I thought, wow, these great people. I mean, they're just so different. And they turned out to be Amway distributors. And so they were also Christians. And they were like, well, they showed me the plan. Like, I would probably have been so turned off in any other way for the gospel, and whether, you know, if it was anything else but a business. Because I had a little bit of the business thing in me, and I didn't even know it. And so God knew it. And so these guys showed me the business, and I started getting into business, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm at this big meeting, and like the 6 months after I moved to Atlanta, and I went down and accepted the Lord at a conference, at a huge free enterprise conference, which is here in Atlanta. And it was like my life switched. My mother's prayers started being answered. My mother at that time was already in Hungary. She was already in hospital. She was already in comas. She was already dying. But she actually, her prayers were answered. So I got saved that September, 6 months after I moved here. I started getting very, very hungry for the Lord. And that was in 1994. 1995, she died on Easter Sunday. And so she died in Hungary. And the day she died, that week, okay, I had such guilt. I cannot even tell you the guilt I had. And so, because I just treated her like crud here for years. So one day I was walking through my living room, and literally I had a completely open vision of her. I didn't even know what that was. And I'm just walking, and literally I see her. And she is, at the first sight, and I see it now, so I know it was real. It was an open vision of her, and she was completely translucent. And she was completely beautiful. And she was smiling at me from ear to ear. And I knew then that Jesus showed her my life.
Yeah.
He showed her my life. He showed her my future. And I was completely released from guilt. From that moment on, I never felt it again. And I was able to walk for the last, since 1995, with the Lord, never turn back. So that I have walked on the path of my mother's prayers. So I want to tell you all, keep praying, because you're building a foundation and a platform for your children. When you are interceding for your children, you are building brick by brick a pathway for them to walk. Just because you don't see it now, do not get discouraged, because truly, you might not see it on the side. But you know what? She has seen it. She's seen it from the other side. So let me tell you about Eric, like in 2 minutes, maybe 5. Okay. It's near here, okay?
Keep going. Yeah.
That's so nice. Oh my gosh, thank you. Wow, thanks. Okay, so from there to here, I just started to hunger very much for the Lord. Okay, a few things happened. 6 months after my mom died, I yearned for God like I've never yearned before. I yearned for Him. I wanted all His gifts, everything He had. I wanted to pray in the Spirit. I wanted healing. I wanted prophecy. I wanted everything that He promised in the Word is what I wanted. P.S. There is a October the 5th, learning about the gifts of the Spirit thing that Be Still is actually putting on. If you'd like to learn more about that, it is a beautiful time to come and learn. So, gosh, I'm so sorry.
Monica, do you want something warm? Like warm tea, coffee vibe? No.
I'm going to just cough. On tape. Oh, well, this is real. So basically, I did have an incredible encounter with the Holy Spirit. And I also, when I had that encounter with the Holy Spirit, I received some gifts of the Holy Spirit, including praying in the Spirit, which is what enabled me to have a lot of victory over the last 20 years. So, and so basically what else happened was I started having night terrors. So this is something, night terrors, let me tell you what they are. They're nightmares, and they're also open-eye visions. So this is real, and I had them for 17 years. And I did everything I possibly could, and went to every prayer group I could, and repented for everything I could. And I can't even tell you everything I've done to try to get out of that. But what was happening through the years was I was being trained. And so basically, I didn't know that then, because it was hard. And so my nights, about 3-4 nights a week, I definitely saw some things that nobody ever wants to see, and I'm not going to describe. But let me tell you, I saw some other things that you want to see. And so there were angelic experiences, a lot of light, a lot of supernatural things. God is very, very real. Jesus is very, very real. Holy Spirit is very, very real. And the kingdom is here. It is not in the future. It is not in the past. It is here with us right now. And if you opened your eyes, there's different dimensions that you wouldn't even believe. And it's beautiful. And it's for you. And it's for me. And it's for victory, for us here now today. So I started experiencing those things. And the way that He trained me is, I actually started worshiping every single night. And worship is the biggest tool that you have. And it's not, you don't have to say, oh, it's a tool. It is a tool. It is a tool of warfare. And basically, your praying in the Spirit is a tool of warfare. Praise is a tool of warfare. You won't believe what's a tool of warfare. It's all in the Word. And that's what it is. So it helps you overcome. So also what was going on in my life was that the Lord was putting in to me a desire for understanding kingdom finances and kingdom stewardship. And I had nothing, so I was like, okay. So, but basically, I really started to have that hunger to understand. And through that Amway experience I had, I was in it for 8 years. And in 8 years, I listened to every tape, every book, every conference. And He used it to change this little girl into a businesswoman, into a salesperson. I had no college degree, and He made me read, and He made me be able to speak. He made me be able to communicate. And it was through a business like, oh my, really? You know, I mean, that was wild. So through the years, I decided, you know, he gave me some other supernatural ways too, and direction. And I started working in an industry, and it was a payment card industry. And I was in sales, and I started this in 1998. And through that, he tested me many times through the years, financially. He tested me in stewardship. He tested me in humility. I continue to have, you know, these night terrors through the years. I was completely alone in the United States when my parents died, so I had no brothers and sisters. I was by myself. But you know what? He surrounded me with beautiful people in Atlanta. Your brothers and sisters in the love of the Lord, and here's one of them right here. He surrounded me for years and years and years, you know, and there was family outside of your family. And so that was awesome. So through the years, I wanted, and this is the last part, I wanted to be married. You know, I was single, and I was like, I have no family, I have no children. And I wanted to be married. I was so damaged, you know, from all the men that I sought the love from and gave myself to for zero, you know, for just such empty pain, that I knew that I needed healing. And so I committed to the Lord to become celibate. And so I walked a celibate life for 20 years. And because of that, I obeyed him and I waited. And you know, that was a big thing. That's grace. Okay? Right here. I got grace. But you know what? You want that. You want that, because that's what starts to heal your heart, and it changes you as a person. So through the years, I waited and waited, and nothing was happening. And my business was growing. I was learning. I was maturing. You know, I was financially prospering. God was doing a lot of things. In my 40s, I started ministering to with a Canadian leadership ministry that ministered to South America, to the leaders there. And I mean, I did it, the things. You know, I put the boots to the ground, and God started using me. I started helping women with their budgeting and helping them, you know, learn their finances when they were, you know, just really lost in that. But still no husband. I mean, really, no husband. And I thought, Lord. So I just went off and on, dating, websites, all that stuff, you know, eHarmony, off and on, off and on. But I still wanted to just stay with the Lord and what he had. And really, it came to the point where I couldn't even do anything about it. There was no, you feel like completely blocked in. There's no, you can't make something happen when God has something in timing. That's his timing, that's it. You can't make something happen, really, if you're submitted. So, and I was. So, literally, I was 49 years old, and about 3 months before my 50th birthday, a prophet came into our prayer group, and he prophesied over me. And he prophesied that God was very pleased with my faithfulness, and that he was about to give me a package, and not one package, but a few packages. And I was like, and everybody knew. Everybody knew, my friends knew what he was talking about. And I was like, okay. Well, 3 months later, I met my husband, and we met on eHarmony, believe it or not. And 6 months after that, we were married. And I met him, I started talking to him online, okay. He's not the UPS man. I was waiting for some supernatural knock on the door. He was, just, you know, on my 50th birthday. We started talking on my 50th birthday. And so he is a beautiful man, a beautiful hearted man. He has 4 beautiful children, and one is right there. It's a beautiful girl. And she's here to support me. And we have 3 grandchildren that are gorgeous. And you know what? This is a whole new journey for me, because being 50, when you're this old, you know, you get married, it's a whole new journey. So in another 10 years, I'll come back and share with that. So that is all. I just really want to just, you know, the theme to my story is you never give up. You never, ever, ever give up. You stay faithful to the Lord. Stay faithful praying for children. Stay faithful to your promises. If you have a promise for a husband, if you have a promise for anything in your life, you do not give up, because it will come no matter when it is. Who cares? It's going to be the right one.
Amen.